to try to keep Nickeil Alexander-Walker and see what you can get for Jaden. But I got to tell you, the last 2 games by Jaden were ridiculous. And the one thing, we know he can score, we know he can play defense, but he has not been a rebounder. In fact, I was surprised that Sunday night was his first double-double. So, I mean, if you can get Jaden rebounding, you can get him shooting with confidence, I mean, the sky's the limit for the Wolves, because I think through the first 20 games, we were all a little bit disappointed with his play. I know some of us had stated that he was the X factor for the Timberwolves to take it, the next step beyond the Western Conference Finals this year, to where I know I pointed out he needed to start scoring, 16 points a game rather than the 13 that he's averaged the last year or two. So, but anyways, successful week. They look like they've turned the corner. Steve, what did you think of the performances against the Lakers and the Spurs?
Yeah, I was really excited about the performances of those last 2 games because for me, December is the month that we're going to find out what we've got as a team. Right? Have we figured it out? Have we learned how to play with our new pieces without Cat? Are we going to be pretenders or are we going to be contenders this year? And so this stretch of games has been really good to see the defense. And I think that, the Lakers and the Spurs, they're both teams that we could be, if we end up in the playoff, the play-in scenario that we'd be messing with, right? These are both teams that have similar records to us. So I was good to see our defense come in and really, Anthony Davis, we held him, he was a -20 basically when he was on the court. And he was the guy, the first game of this season, that was talking all that trash to Rudy about how AD, he was the defensive player of the year stuff. So, yeah, it was really good. And then, the Spurs are trying to figure it out. They've had a much better season than they did last year. I think they're approaching their win total for all of last season already. So they're definitely doing better. Chris Paul working with that group, and then Wemby, Wemby is starting to mature a lot more. But again, our defense really in surviving some of the issues that we may have had offensively, but our defense is, when we hang our hat on that, we're in every game and we're able to handle it. So, the Lakers and the Spurs, I loved it. I was glad to see the defense keep going and keep rolling, and see that trend of keeping people under 100 points continue. Reza, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah, I remember that conversation where we were saying that, is McDaniels expendable? But ever since that, I think the Anthony Edwards call out of the team, he's been super engaged defensively. I think his on-ball defense was lacking early on, but it's really, really stepped up. And it seems like his offense has kind of followed suit. As mentioned by Mike, I think he had 9 rebounds in the last week and then 11 rebounds. He also had 5 steals in one of the games and then 4 in the other. But I think the biggest stat that I saw is that he only committed 1 foul in each game.
Wow.
And typically, he's just hacking all night. And that's often, even when he's very engaged defensively, he plays himself off the court because he gets a little too handsy. And that has not been the case. He's really, really keeping his where he had a block on Wemby in the game, but I think it may have been credited as a steal. Not sure, but the dude's just been all over the place. He's hitting shots, and he's running the floor. So he's really, really been one of the catalysts in this turnaround, and he's looking like the all defensive guy that we've been accustomed to for the past couple of years. And is he smiling more, or is that am I imagining? I don't know, but easy, and I think that I'm very happy to see it though, and if he can keep it up, the Wolves are going to be a tough out for anybody, and I think they're gonna turn this thing around. Benati, what do you think?
Hey, I'm not worried about Jaden's points at all. at all. 13 points a game, I'm cool with that. I don't need that to go up. I need him to hit spot up threes when they're open because defense is lagging on them. I need confidence and effort out of that guy. And as my esteemed colleague Razor Ramon has said, and Razor Ramon, we call him that because he's sharp as a tack. The foul trouble, that helps everything. I mean, we can't really tell when Jaden's moving because he looks the same all the time. It's confidence and effort. That's the only thing I want out of him. And the points, that doesn't bother me. So, if this continues, I'm down, Michael.
Yeah, all valid points, and like I said, hopefully it sustains his play because I think it definitely is going to help them. They've obviously started to work to get out of that hole that they started the season in. I believe they're probably somewhere around the 7th, 8th seed right now. I mean, there's still more than 2/3 of the season to play, but you start to see some of the landscape settling. Obviously, Dallas got off to a slow start. They're starting to play a little better. Surprisingly, OKC last night, I caught some of the NBA Cup final. I know Steve and I were had our first practice for the basketball team that we coach, but I was surprised to see OKC get wiped off the floor. And granted, they're missing Chet, but man, they look rough. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's the NBA Cup, and we all talked about it the last couple of weeks. Who gives a shit? So, anyways. But
real quick, my friends in Milwaukee were very, very one of them at least was quite excited about that one.
Okay, well, they can hang the banner like the Lakers did last year, right next to the
banners.
Yeah, so we're looking for something bigger, but we'll see what takes place. But obviously, some games coming up. We'll talk a little bit about tomorrow's game at the end here, but wanted to turn to Anthony Edwards. And had a couple of conversations with you guys today. First, I'll start with you, Steve, just about how the offense is kind of stagnant once Ant comes out of the game. And I know we got a pretty decent second unit with Nikhil out there. Naz's play has been a little inconsistent as of late, but give us your take on just what the offense looks like when Ant is not out there.
Yeah, for me, it's one thing I noticed, even with this, win streak here, and yeah, I was a little bit greedy because their defense got going, and then it was like, all right, we've been scoring, up north of 100 points a lot ourselves, and now we're suddenly not doing that, which, okay, a little bit of a trade-off there, but there's a couple times where Ant's not on the floor, and that ball just doesn't move. They look confused or don't know, like, who should we be driving this to, right? And you see Dante coming down the court and and you can see that there's indecision. Like you get that second pass, that third pass, they're like, okay, who's supposed to be rotating through? Who are we actually running this play for? And instead of just playing, right? It's almost like when Ant's not out there, they're thinking too much, and they don't okay, we're going to drive it through somebody. That's a part, I think it's the trade that we still haven't figured out yet. Like when Ant was on the court, if Cat was on the court, yeah, everybody's like, no, okay, we're going to play off of Cat, right? He gets the ball somehow, and then he's facilitating, whether he's driving, shooting, passing. Everybody rotates around him and works with him, right? The problem that we've got, I think, is Mr. Sticky Fingers with Mr. Randall is because he gets the ball and he's sloppy, right? Like when he's engaged, he gets downhill, he's a terror, right? He puts his shoulder into somebody, he gets moving. But when he gets stymied, 15 feet out, 10 feet out or whatever, it gets sloppy, right? If he gets into the protected circle there, when he gets around there, he's good to go. He's either going to shoot it, he does a quick dump off to Nas or Rudy or something like that, he's fine. But in that 15 mid-range, when he gets a ball, it's stuck in his hands, he's bouncing it off his foot, it's bad passes, he's jumping up and trying to figure out where to pass it to. Yeah, I think there needs to be some different play style run there to get the ball moving faster and just let these guys play, because it looks to me like they're thinking too much about who should be doing what and where do we got to, instead of just going out there and playing and just letting it flow. You've got a lot of talent in that second unit, with Dante and Na, and Nas, just let him flow, just let him play. And I think Mr. Sticky Fingers is getting, when he's out there with that second unit, it's not working. And I think that they just they stagnate and they're like, okay, who's supposed to be the alpha right now? So, I think they got to get that. I think they just got to move the ball faster, stop trying to think so much and just play quicker, because if they don't, what's going to happen is that, we'll see rotations change from these other teams where they're like, okay, we're going to give, like people playing against Denver right now. Okay, we know Jokic is going to get X amount, but we're going to shut everybody else down. They know Ant's going to get his 30 points, his 40 points, whatever the case may be. But, they're not going to worry about that. They'll let him get that. But then if we don't have a secondary unit that can score when he's not out there, they're going to completely swallow us. I don't know. Ramon, help me. I'm running out of words. I'm just as stuck with my words as Sticky Fingers is with the ball.
Oh, you did great. And I'm probably just going to echo a lot of what you just said. But it's rough, I think, for almost any team in the NBA once their star player sits. I think each team is just kind of trying to survive those minutes when the elite star player is sitting. And so how do you solve for that? It's tough. I think for the Wolves, one of the things that they leaned into last year, aside from Cat, was the Rudy, Mike Conley pick and roll. And unfortunately, Conley's been off to a little bit of a slow start. I think his three-point shot has been more effective lately, but now that floater that he has when the help defender leans back into Rudy's role, his floater's just not falling right now. So if he can figure out that floater, I think that's going to really help out their offensive flow. Also, Dante DiVincenzo has gotten off to a bit of a slow start. I think he's playing better. And I think over the last 2 games, he found something. I mean, he threw up some pretty wild passes to Rudy off of lobs, and I was like, no, but they worked. I mean, Rudy had just a crazy dunk. And with Wemby, Wemby's just unreal, what he can do to an opposing offense with his defensive talent and skills. It's unbelievable. But that was something that they seemed to find against the Spurs. So it's good to see DiVincenzo getting going. But I think one of our favorites, and he's a crowd favorite as well, Rob Dillingham. And they got to figure out a way to get some playing time for him. I know that he had an ankle injury, so he was sitting. But he did about 10 minutes, I think, against the Spurs, and I think he hit 2 threes. And I think there was who was it? Blake or Wesley, I think, was trying to pressure him, and Dillingham just put him on skates. So they need to figure out a way to get him going, and so hopefully that can help them survive those non-Ant minutes, because, if you don't, you can't rely on Ant too much, because he's going to wear down. And I think that may have been part of what happened last year against Dallas. He looked exhausted in the conference finals. Naughty, your thoughts?
Mr. Steve stepped on my Sticky Fingers thing there, man. I saw a stat. I'm not. Steve's the stat guy. I'm not a stat guy, but I did see a couple stats where average seconds per touch.
Yeah.
I saw like Anthony Davis, like every time he touches the ball, it's like 2.1 seconds. LeBron James, that's a bad example. I digress. But every time that guy touches the ball, Sticky Fingers, he's got it for like 4.3 seconds. And that stops the flow of the game. It just does. And then when Ant's off the floor, they usually have him out there. And Nas was, he's a fan favorite. We all love him. I mean, we're not going to stop loving him. But he was a sneaky guy. He was the sneaky guy, like the third or fourth option that they didn't cover. And I think Jules is the problem as far as that is. And DiVincenzo and him have been playing together for the last year. And I just think it's a lack of communication. And I just don't think that guy's a fit, and I think that's the problem. Michael.
Yeah, and I mean, they're winning, and I think Timberwolves fans echo that. I know Steve and I spent a lot of time on X/Twitter, and I think Johnny Athletic, John Krasinski from The Athletic, he was summoning questions for his podcast, and I was one of about many people that said, does Julius Randle make the trade deadline? And I think it's a valid concern. I do think, and just some of the hoopla with Cat returning, I think a lot of Timberwolves fans, and I know it's premature, it's still early because a lot of people had the same sentiment when we traded for Rudy a couple of years ago. A lot of people are not liking this trade, to date. I mean, it's still too early to assess, not to mention, if something does happen to Randall, what are we going to get in return? So, I mean, you got to look at it holistically. You can't just, and I think Brett said it, eloquently last week. You can't just look at it as Cat for Randall. And I mean, because DiVincenzo was also a part of it as well, but still too early to assess. We'll see what happens, but I would say Randall's play to date has left a little bit to be desired by the fan base. And back to Ant, something that Brian and I were talking about earlier today is just the amount of three-pointers he's taking this year, which obviously it seems like a lot. I did a historical look, and he's averaging 10.2 per game this year. Historically, he's averaged 7.4 in his career. So, I mean, it's about 2.5, almost 3 shots more a game. And I know Brian had stated, and he'll come together with the stat, even though he's not a stat guy. I hope you found that stat because, like I said, we had this conversation earlier today. But, I mean, Ant doesn't seem to be going downhill. He's not dunking as much, which is fine. I mean, he's hitting at a 42% clip from 3, which is, I believe, 5 or 6 percentage points above his average. So I don't have a problem with the volume as long as he's making them. I know lately he's been scoring in the low 20s, where I think he started the season up there around 28, 29. So his scoring has went down, but the team is winning. And I think Ant would be the first one to tell you, I don't give a shit how many points I score as long as we're winning. But Steve, just what are you seeing with Ant's game this year that's a little different, maybe from even the start of the season? Like I said, the 3-point volume is high. Has he really not ascended that level yet where he's always been a 3-level scorer, but he does not seem to be attacking the lane or throwing out the thunderous dunks. I did hear him once say that he doesn't like to dunk because the landings hurt. He's a big kid, so.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with him shooting more threes, right? I don't. And it does say wear and tear on his body. But I think one of the things, and that actually could be part of the adjustment that our team's making after the trade, is that with the spacing, when they figured out the spacing, right? First year, Rudy, spacing was terrible. Last year with Rudy and everybody, spacing was good. And they had that spacing open, Cat stretching the floor and getting things around. Ant had a lot more room to be able to attack and get downhill. And Mike, you're a victim of listening to me scream at the TV in your basement there, in the man cave about Ant not attacking when we needed to get energized and we needed to get moving. But this year we're seeing, Ant shooting that 3 more, and I think a lot of it's, by design from talking, but they're also, they're shooting their mid-range and their 3-point shots are ridiculous, which I think is fine. If we're getting, less Ant dunks, but we're getting more Ant threes, I think that's not beating those double teams with his driving ability makes it so that everybody else kind of settles and watches, right? And the defense will spread out on him, because if you're double teaming Ant, there really should be no reason why we're not getting somebody else a shot, and we shouldn't be getting turnovers from that. Ant's too good of a dribbler. He's too fast. He's too powerful. So I don't have a problem with him being a more volume 3-point shooter, but I think the maturity has got to be there so that when he gets those doubles, he's either getting rid of it quick and getting the ball moving, or he's doing like he did last year, he attacks downhill faster. So I think it's about his maturing and being able to know, all right, because some of his threes this year have been perfect in timing, and all of a sudden he flips that switch. He drops 2-3 in a row on somebody, and that game, the tone of the game is completely changed, which is, the energy level that you get from him.
Be bothered by it when he's shooting 42.4% from three. Like his overall shooting percentage is about the same as last year, 46%. So, I mean, it's working and it's conserving his body for in terms of energy. It's safer. He's not getting knocked to the floor over and over again, not landing funny. And he takes some hard falls sometimes. And Mike said that he's talked about the pain that he experiences when he goes hard to the basket. And again, this could pay off down the line, late in the season. He'll be healthier. He'll have more energy. But for some reason, I don't love it, but it seems to be working, at least statistically. But just looking at his overall stats for the season, I didn't realize that his assists were down. I mean, and somewhat significantly. I mean, he'd been averaging 5.1 assists per game last year. He's down to under 4. And his turnovers are exactly the same at 3.1. So in that regard, his efficiency has not gone up at all. So I'm guessing it's because, when he shoots his threes, a lot of times it's step backs, and he'd get a lot of his assists when he'd attack the rim, kickouts to other people.
Good point.
But I would like to see him go to the rim a little bit more. I think it does open up things for other people. But again, if you're just looking at the numbers, I feel like I really don't have much of an argument. So, Naughty?
Yeah, I agree 100%. How can you argue about it? I mean, he's in the top 5 in three-pointers made this year. I mean, Steve's the stat guy. He'd probably correct me on that. I mean, I don't love it either. But when we first got Rudy and everybody wanted to tar and feather Conley, what are you doing? We gave up all this. Well, it didn't work because they didn't know how to work together. You had Kat and you had Rudy and Nas all in the lane. I don't think there's any room for him to go there. And by the way, I know this is a PG-13 program, dude. I don't care about your health, dude. Don't be a bitch. Get in there when you see it, because it will light a fire. It will light a fire when we need it. Let's go. And I think Sticky Fingers is a lot of that problem. And I hate to harp on that guy every day, or every podcast. But it seems like a lot of excuses. A lot of, come on, guys. The assist, as my esteemed colleague Gracer has said, is down. So therefore the efficiency is down. I mean, does that cancel out that he's shooting 43% from the arc? Kinda. I mean, but when that Cat or that Rudy trade came up, the lane was clogged and we were losing. But we're winning now. So I really can't say anything about it, but I don't like it either, Razor. Michael.
We like it, but we don't. It's bittersweet.
Yes.
Right.
All right. Still plenty of season to go. We'll see how that plays out. But big game tomorrow night against the New York Knicks visiting town. I'm excited. My son and I will be in attendance. First Wolves game for us this year, coming off of our first Vikings game on Monday night. So it's a exciting week for me. Unfortunately, I see per usual the Minnesotans are panicking because we're going to get maybe 5 to 8 inches of snow, which I know when we were all children here growing up in Minnesota wasn't shit, but I mean, it's a different era. So hopefully we'll get out there in time. We will. We'll get out there and hopefully, maybe they'll cancel school Friday so it won't be so bad when my son and I don't get home till midnight on Thursday night because it's an 8:30 national game. But excited for Cat to come in, and let's be honest, excited for the matchup. I mean, the Knicks are playing some great basketball. Cat's having a great season. And obviously, you got the big storyline with the trade. So, seeing that Cat will return tomorrow night, we just wanted to go around the horn here and ask everybody what their favorite Cat memory was as a Timberwolf. Steve, we'll start with you.
Oh, there's a lot. And so I actually went on and was pulling up his highlights and stuff like that. So I'm like, man, there's so many. You know, he had a number of game winners, you know, dropping threes, layups in the lane, things of that nature. But I think my favorite, and mainly, you know, part of it is freshness and memory, and part of it is, you know, the importance of the game was that it was kind of the dagger in Game 7 against the Nuggets last year, that when he came in, that putback dunk.
Damn it, you stole mine!
I forget if it was...
it was in the last minute.
But that one, he comes in, that putback dunk right down the, you know, where he comes down the lane and bam, Game 7, dagger. It was like over, you know. It was like that moment. That and technically, you know, I think there was still almost 30 seconds left in the game, but my favorite of all time. But I don't know, I'll turn over to Razor and slink back in shame.
Well, Steve, you took mine too. That was the one for me. But I do want to add to that a little bit, and then I'll share another memory. But his celebration, I think, didn't he catch the final rebound and just like savor that moment in Denver, kind of exercising all the demons that he'd had? He'd been known as like a underwhelming in the playoffs, a guy that didn't step up in the big moments, and then he had an incredible series against Phoenix in which he guarded one of the all-time greats, Kevin Durant, and did a really, really solid, nice job on it, a perimeter-oriented player. And then he played another all-time great, different style player in Jokic, and did an incredible job defensively. So I think he really was soaking in the joy of kind of like exercising those demons. That was, you know, just to add onto your memory a little bit, that was awesome. And one other thing I wanted to add, I was at the game last year. It didn't end in the greatest way, but when he dropped 62 on the Charlotte Hornets, the Wolves ended up getting a little too reliant on his hot shooting, and they lost their way, lost the game, and I was really pissed off about that. But just to watch a guy get into that kind of a zone where they're hitting 21 shots, I think, out of 35, and just draining deep three after deep three, it's something to behold. And I mean, the NBA is really something else when you get to see moments like that. The loss sucked. That's still it's bugging me right now. You can probably hear it in my voice. But just to see Cat just go off like that was amazing. You know what I mean?
All right, I don't have an exact date or an exact moment. But when we started 18-3, or when the Timberwolves started 18-3, 18-5 last year, all like 10 years of that guy complaining and whining the rest of us. Come on, hey! Somehow somebody got through to him right around 20, game 20, 25, and that guy shut the fuck up and actually played basketball, actually ran down the court when he thought he got fouled. He actually played ball. I don't know the exact date. That's where the T-Dogs, that's where it came alive last year. And that is my favorite Cat moment because I hated it. I hated it for 9-10 years. That whiny bitch, Michael.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, Brian, if you were in attendance tomorrow, would you cheer or boo Cat out of curiosity?
No, you got to cheer him.
Okay.
You got to cheer him. He's a loyal guy. He didn't want to get traded.
Yeah. Yeah. And ironically, similarly, somebody must have told Ann in the offseason to stop yelling hey every time he drives the damn lane because it seems like that has went away this year. So perhaps maybe one of the refs or one of the coaches pulled him aside and said, yelling hay's not going to do shit for you, so stop it. But, yeah, obviously Steve stole everybody but Brian's favorite moment. No worries, Steve, because it's a great one as well. But there's another one that I thought about, and I had to look at it while you guys were talking, or look at the date. It was against the Atlanta Hawks almost 2 years ago after he was out for a good portion of the season. And the game he came back, Mitchell and I just happened to go to that game. And if you remember correctly, he came right out and popped threes. And then at the end of the game, he got fouled with a couple seconds left in the game, hit 2 clutch free throws to win the game for them. And that's when he had his infamous interview where this is what movies is made of and all that. Everybody's probably seen the interview many times, but I just happened to be at that game, and it was great to see him come back. And after all those months, I mean, he, came right in and had a clutch performance in a very meaningful season. That's the season that we, unfortunately, at the end kind of unraveled Rudy's first season, but we ended up getting the 7th seed and giving the Denver Nuggets a fit, which I think all of us agree if Jaden hadn't punched the wall and Nas hadn't broke his wrist, I don't know that we don't beat Denver that year. But anyways, I love that moment. There's also the one, I believe it was after, Ramon, you and I think might have been at this one was it after game 6 against the Grizzlies? The one where he came out and did the old, I remember I wanted to leave a little early. Ramon's like, no, let's see this thing through. And even Finch was out there giving the fans a round of applause. But if you've ever seen the highlight of Cat, kissing goodbye to the crowd and stuff, that was that game. Ramon and I just happened to be there together. So, but, good to see him doing well. So we will close this show with one last one. And this was Ramon's idea. I love this one, though. So, and, we all liked Cat, except for Brian, evidently. But,
don't stop it. This pitching sucked.
All right, think of
refs don't like that shit.
Okay. We're gonna go around, and first we're gonna go with your favorite current Timberwolf on another team, and I thought long and hard about this. There's not a lot still in the NBA, or there's not a lot that are impactful. Think about the people that we traded for Rudy. Pat Bev's out of the league. Jared Vanderbilt's been nursing injuries for years. But I'm gonna go with, and it might be controversial, maybe because I own one of his jerseys and I'm trying to keep him relevant, is D'Lo.
Oh.
And I'm not going to say, hey, I'm just going to say this. The D'Lo era outside the playoffs wasn't all that bad. D'Lo, when he was streaky, when he could start hitting threes, he did. Oh, come on, man. Hey, I was at the play-in game versus Los Angeles. He played clutch. Remember, your guys' hero, Cat, was in foul trouble. I think he didn't score but 10 points. He fouled out with like 5 minutes left. So, and let's be honest. There's not a lot of options out there. I'm thinking, Zach LaVine. I think, and we're also going to get to our least favorite former Timberwolf, and I'm thinking it's going to be unanimous amongst this group. But, maybe for entertainment purposes, I'm throwing D'Lo out there. But there were the first couple of years D'Lo was here, I did like him, but I remember Ramon, it was at the same game we were at against the Grizzlies where he just got played off the floor and they had to put McLaughlin in there because I think you and I we might have been booing, but
we were.
So you know what? This time, so Steve don't steal something, I'm going to go the other direction. Be naughty. Who is your favorite former Timberwolves still currently in the NBA?
I'm going to shit in your Wheaties.
Oh.
Yeah. When I was growing up, I always liked the guy in the black hat. I really did. I think I was Darth Vader for like 5 or 6 straight years for Halloween when I was a kid. I think I even went as Norman Bates and his mom a couple times too. My favorite former Timberwolf, Jimmy Buckets. He was right. We were soft.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yep. What did he do the other day? Yeah, I'm telling you. He wants to win. And were we not soft?
Well, I'll get to him in a little bit, so.
I know you will, but that's my favorite former Timberwolf. Razor.
Maybe this is recency, but I'm going to go, and I love role players. I'm going to go with Taurean Prince, who is now playing for the Milwaukee Bucks.
He had a good game last night.
Yeah, he left the Timberwolves 2 years ago. I think, I don't remember the nature why he left, but I think he was a free agent. They just couldn't afford him. But he's leading the league right now in 3-point shooting percentage, and he's been a major asset to that team. So it's good to see him playing on a good team and making a major impact. But just seemed always like a class act, a guy that was always willing to stand up for his teammates, could shoot it, could defend a little bit, made good decisions.
A little bit.
Yeah, and his celebration wasn't it the chef's kiss whenever he hit a three. And then I don't know if you guys remember this, but I think he came out of Baylor, and there was a post-game press conference where his team was and himself were getting called out for rebounding, and he just condescendingly told this reporter what a rebound was, and it was
grab it off the rim.
it was hilarious. Yeah, and so that helped him have a special place in my heart. So Taurean Prince, that's my guy.
And if you remember correctly, I think it was 2 seasons ago, he single-handedly beat the Knicks in Madison Square Garden in a game where we were shorthanded. I can't remember who was out. I think we had a couple of players out, and that was all Taurean. Steve, hopefully we didn't steal one of yours. I know we didn't steal. I know you're not going to steal Brian's.
No. Yeah, I was actually looking for the clown reaction on that one. I couldn't find it quick enough. There's a couple guys in the league still that I liked. Some people not as much. I mean, Kevin Love was still in the league, and it was a little bit dicey when he left. I know there was hurt feelings here, hurt feelings there, but Kevin Love was always he gave what he could to us when he was here. Taj Gibson, he wasn't here very long, but that guy's amazing. He's loved everywhere he goes. Yeah. The other night, the fans, he was sitting on the bench, because he's kind of a role player now, and the fans chanted his name in Chicago. I think he's playing for Charlotte. They're chanting his name in Chicago until he came, until they put him in to come play in the court. So there's a couple of guys like that. J.D. Mack, I like McLaughlin. I liked his game. Nice dude, normal, kind of down to earth guy. Vando, I liked. I know he's been hurt a lot, but Vando, I was actually really disappointed when we lost him because I thought he had some grit to him, and I thought he played hard. He didn't have maybe the talent of some of the other guys, but yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to just put my finger on one. I mean, Kevin Love, maybe because because of what he meant when he was here, but some of these guys they're just good dudes like Todd Gibson and J-Mac. You just want to see him go on good well. And honestly, if I had to pick one right now, probably Slow-Mo.
Yeah.
Slow-Mo, because we could really use him right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
We could use his toughness. We've turned our defense around, but honestly, I couldn't stand how he shoots and all these other things that just would drive me bonkers. But his locker room presence and what he meant in leadership to this team, so probably right now the guy that I miss the most would be Slow-Mo. Good
choices. So at least we'll end this segment and this week, or we'll end this week's show with our least favorite. And I can start out, and this is going to be no surprise. And then we'll work our way back around. So Steve, you'll be next. But obviously Jimmy Butler, I am not a fan of. Were the Timberwolves that year soft? Perhaps. They were soft. But let's be honest with you. This guy cut the logo out of his shirt and showed up to practice, in a half-cut shirt. Let's not act like he's some great teammate. Who was the guy that, for the Heat, their longtime player, and his name escapes me right now, that almost punched his lights out after he reamed the coach team?
Udonis
Haslem. Yeah. I'll tell you what. Jimmy did not want that smoke. And to me, he's always been very Stephon Diggs-esque, you know what I mean, on a team. He's a great talent, but do you think he's a great teammate? And I'm hoping they send him to the Suns, for I don't know what they'll get for him, maybe Bradley Beal. Yeah, Bradley Beal. And just because, let's be honest, his health has not been good the last couple of years, and I realize he's had some great success in the playoffs over the years, but if you remember last year, he wasn't in the playoffs at all. And then he talked a lot of shit afterwards and got dressed down by his own GM, Pat Riley. So I mean, outside of the team that he plays for, does any fans in the NBA like Jimmy Butler? other than Brian, but because you like the villain, man.
That's not necessarily.
Yeah, you are that.
Tom Thibodeau as my.
Yeah, you are that guy, Brian. You are that guy. You root.
Okay, I'll wear it. I'll wear it.
You root for the bad guy, man. Steve.
Yeah. Dude, Jimmy Buckets. Honestly, we've had some real winners come through Minnesota. You know, Leitner, Marbury, some
J.R. Ryder.
That you're just like J.R. Ryder. You're like, oh my God, what is wrong with these people? You know, you're just like, wow, how? But I think the way that Butler left, like, I understand he wasn't happy with it, but instead of, you know, if you think about him not being a jackass and then being able to, you know, work with the team and be like, hey, like, this is how we need to get better, you know, to get to where we want to go, that I would have taken that approach personally. Like, hey, we've got some pieces here. We could get tougher. We could get stronger. We can be more.
Jimmy avoided the smoke and went and murdered Gabe Vincent on one of the worst calls. And I was at that game, and that was one of the worst calls I've ever seen. I wish Finchie would have called a timeout and reviewed it. Then they would have given it the proper dunk and one that it should have been. But that
basically, Ant responded right back to Jimmy Buckets by not taking any of his crap, and then went and dunked with his basketballs right on that guy's head.
Yes.
So that was one of my favorite Ant moments watching that, because it was like, no, you step off. So Buckets out of all the weirdos we've had come through with all the weird draft picks our organization has done, Buckets, but good riddance. Nobody's going to cry for him. We're not going to see his jersey in the rafters here anytime soon. So Buckets, no thanks.
Call Rachel Nichols. Ramon.
I'm not though. Raise up.
Well, I mean, you mentioned it, Jimmy Butler. I won't add anything else. He's the top of the list. But another guy that deserves dishonorable mention is Michael Olowokandi. Last guy to show up to practice, first guy to hit up the clubs. But I'm going to go with D'Lo. I'm going to counter Mike here.
Yes.
I got to see D'Lo play the University of Minnesota when he was at Ohio State. I hadn't heard of him before, but I remember watching him and being like, oh my God, this dude is definitely an NBA player, and he's going to be incredible in the pros. And then eventually he worked his way over to the Wolves. Gerson Rosas was courting him for a long time, ended up getting him. I was very, very excited. But then you start to see the warts, the no defense, the Mr. Know-It-All, calling out all the defensive coverages even though he's not guarding his man, and the bad shot selection, the bad turnovers, and then I think not a very good teammate either. I think that he made Rudy Gobert's transition to the Timberwolves more difficult than it should have been. I think I heard he would talk bad about him to other teams in the middle of games, or talk bad about him in the locker room to reporters right in front of him. And I mean, I would have thought that of all the players, D'Lo was going to be the one that would benefit the most from Rudy, protecting him on defense and then having a lob threat, because he liked to play that cat and mouse game. But he just wasn't having it. And then when he left, he kind of made these comments about kind of blaming Finch for his ineffectiveness. Like, the Wolves never really gave him the chance to really shine. And it was like, wait a second, man, they tried to turn you into the number 2 option, at worst the number 3 option, and now you're like a spot up shooter for the Lakers. And he just always blaming everybody else. Not a bad guy necessarily, I don't think, but just seemed like a bad teammate, and just somebody that's never going to really be a part of a really good team, because he's always going to think he's more than
say his name is, he courted him. They were flying him from everywhere in a Huey helicopter, and he could have signed with us without having to trade the 7th pick and without having to trade Wiggins. We could have traded Wiggy for something else. And that guy, streaky shooter, when he's hot, he's hot. But that guy don't give a shit about nobody, and I love the private hell that D-Blow is in right now. So that's what I got to say, Michael.
Well, damn, now I'm questioning my pick. And you bring up Wiggins, and Wiggins struggled here, but I mean, I think he was generally liked by his teammates, was a decent guy, you know, played his butt off, didn't quite pan out to be in the number 1 pick. So, damn it, I'm changing mine. Andrew Wiggins. Hey, that's NBA champion Andrew Wiggins, right? He does have a ring. So,
yeah.
There we go. So,
Jordan.
I don't know what...
Jordan, remember?
Yes. I do not know what the hell I was thinking, gentlemen. Thank you for setting me...
drugs, I think. You need to be drug tested. You're not working now, so you're just like hitting the wacky tobacco, I think.
Evidently. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, gentlemen, but you have helped me see the light.
Oh!
What we're here for.
All right, gentlemen, that wraps up another Wolves Weekly. And like I said, big game tomorrow night, so everybody be sure to tune in for that. I will probably do some type of update from there, at least put some footage up on the socials, etc., kind of like I did for Monday night's game against the Bears. So appreciate it, gentlemen, and we will see you next week. Take care, guys.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Recording stopped.